Hello, welcome to Alliance Academy. I'm Miriam Parker. I'm the Executive Director of the Texas Food and Wine Alliance. Today I'm in the home of James Beard finalist, Chef Anita Jaisinghani, the owner of Pondicheri here in Houston, Texas. She's going to show us how to make a wonderful and comforting Autumn Dal. Before we get started, we're going to need a cocktail. We're going to have creative specialist Ajna Jai show us how to make a delicious Golden Mule with Tito's Handmade Vodka. Hi, I'm in the kitchen with Ajna Jai. She's going to show us how to make a delicious Golden Mule. Show us what you got.
Yeah, I'm very excited to show you how to make this.
I'm so excited.
It's a very easy and a somewhat healthy recipe, so let's start.
Okay, great.
The biggest component about the Golden Mule that we make is we make our own ginger syrup. So we're going to start with that first because that takes the longest.
Okay.
So right here we have some ginger puree, and we already pureed it. Basically, what you do is you just take ginger, you cut it up, you put it with a little bit of water in a food processor, and then here you have ginger puree. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna strain it. So we're gonna take some from here and put it in the strainer right here. And the goal is to get all the juice from here. We don't necessarily want all the pulp for the drink.
Okay.
We should definitely keep the pulp still because you can use it in cooking and everything else. So don't throw this pulp away if you do this. But you see how much juice we're getting just from here?
And it smells so fragrant.
Yeah.
It's so good.
It's wonderful, and it keeps the spiciness of the ginger, which is what I think people like in mules, is that little tickle in the back of your throat.
For sure.
So I think we have enough right here, and see, this remaining is still all edible and great. So I'm just gonna toss it back in here because I'm probably gonna use this for cooking, or more likely my mom's gonna use this for cooking instead of me. So this ginger syrup is 2 components. We have sugar and the ginger juice.
Okay.
It is a 1-to-1 ratio. So depending on how much you wanna make is how much you put of sugar, how much you put of the juice based on your preference. So right here we have some sugar in this little jar, and I'm gonna add some more, excuse me. Okay, great. Now I'm gonna add this juice. Now this is a syrup that does not involve any heat.
Okay, yeah, I was wondering about that. Okay.
Yeah, there's no heat. Instead, this will bind itself together. So we're gonna put this really tight. Now this is sort of the fun part, is we're just gonna shake it. I'm gonna keep shaking it, and eventually the juice and the sugar will come together as one.
Okay, great.
And this can be used in this cocktail, it can be used in, I don't know, a lemonade or any sort of drink you want. Even in the morning, if you wanna have honey, lemon, and hot water, you could put some of this in there and have instead of the honey, and you'd put some sugar and ginger. So it can be used in numerous ways. So I would recommend, we're gonna put this in the fridge. We're gonna shake it every 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay.
And then for about an hour. If you're having a lot of fun, you can do it for another hour. But you can sort of check later that it looks like it's all in one.
Okay, great.
You really don't want the sugar to get too much to the bottom. So let's go ahead and put this in the fridge.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Okay, so now I think our ginger syrup is ready.
Okay, great.
Since we've been shaking it every 5 to 10 minutes for an hour, and here we are.
All right, awesome. So when you don't heat it up, it really does retain a lot of the healthy elements of ginger.
Yes, and when we puree it with the skins on.
Oh, okay, cool.
So it gets everything in here. There's no need to take anything away from this ginger. Okay, so now's the fun part. We're gonna make the cocktail since we have everything ready. We are going to start with putting everything in here, and we're gonna shake and dump. Very simple. The first thing we'll do is we're gonna put in our vodka.
Okay.
We have Tito's right here, which is a wonderful choice. We're gonna do 1.5 ounces.
Okay.
So that's for one cocktail. So here you are, okay? Okay, so we have the vodka in. The next thing we're gonna do is a lime. We're gonna do 0.5 ounces, and we're at home. You can definitely measure it into here, but it's about half a lime or so.
Okay.
So, and this is another part where you say, I really want my drink to be really full of lime. Go ahead and put in a full one.
Okay.
So we're gonna just go ahead and put this straight in here so we don't waste any of this. That is usually about 0.5 with these juicy limes. Yeah, a lot more comes out. Okay, so we did that. Now we're gonna put an ounce of the ginger syrup.
Okay.
And once again, if you really like this ginger syrup, there isn't anyone saying you can't put more than 1 ounce in it.
Yeah, I think I would probably double up a little bit.
Yeah.
Just sort of, I really like ginger, so.
Well, then that would be perfect. And then now the fun part is we're gonna put dried turmeric in here.
Okay.
So then I sort of filled this glass up halfway with ice.
Okay.
We're gonna just dump that in there and rim this glass. So I'm gonna just dump this out in here. Okay. Then I really like to enjoy my cocktails in style, even if I'm at home. So I'm gonna rim this. I sort of just took the end of the lime or lemon that you have.
Smart, yeah.
And right here we have some turmeric and sugar mix.
Okay.
If you want, you can put salt. If you don't like a rim, don't put anything. But
do you do equal parts?
I do equal parts. Sometimes I put more turmeric because I like it that way, but for today I did equal parts because then it sort of gets a pretty color around it.
Yeah.
And when you're drinking it, you can kind of taste the sugar. Okay, so now we're going to shake this.
Okay, great.
You shake it as much or as little as you want, but you really just want the drink to be cold, is what you're getting at. Okay, now I'm going to dump this whole thing in here.
Has such a beautiful color.
Yeah, it's a lovely gold. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna top it off with some Topo Chico.
Okay, great.
Some sparkling water. Just to give it that soda boost right there.
I imagine this is gonna be very, very refreshing.
It's very refreshing. I love it. And then I just took a little lime wheel, cut a little end, put it right here, and then you have the Golden Mule.
Well, I have my drink in hand, my delicious Golden Mule, and now I'm gonna have Chef show me how to make her amazing dal. Chef, thank you so much for having us in your home today.
You're welcome. Happy to have you here.
Well, show us how to make your autumn dal.
Okay, so this is like an autumn dal soup.
Okay.
So I've had my lentils here, my tur dal lentils, simmering for about 15-20 minutes.
Okay.
And the next thing I'm going to do is to this I'm going to add some of these chopped cloves. I'm going to chop them, and then with the grated ginger, the turmeric, the salt, and some water. And then I'm going to add the chopped butternut squash, which I'm going to chop in a minute, to like big cubes so I taste the sweet chunks as I eat it. And then we will do a pop, which is a technique that is unique to India. It's really interesting. I will heat up the ghee and then pop the cumin seeds, the cardamom, and then these curry leaves that are these amazing fragrant leaves that have the essence of like pine and lemon. They added a lot to the soup.
Right.
And then the chili powder, and then we will throw all that into the soup, and then put the kale at the end, and a squeeze of lemon, and that's gonna be our soup.
Wonderful. I can't
Yeah, me too. So we've had these lentils simmering here for about 15-20 minutes, and they are what I call whisk tender. So they are tender, and when you whisk them, they should actually just smooth into a puree, which is what I'm going to do right now as I whisk them.
Okay.
And then I'm going to add, I'm going to chop these cloves up here. It's just simple little cloves, and add the turmeric, the salt, and the ginger all into the soup right now. And you could do the chopping of the cloves with like a knife or a mortar and pestle or whatever or even a rolling pin. So there are many ways. And I'm just adding the cloves to add a little bit of like sharp heat. You know, cloves are heating to the body. Okay, so I'm going to add the chopped cloves, the turmeric, the salt. It seems like a lot of salt, but remember, we're going to add lots of water to this, and the squash. And this is a tablespoon of unpeeled ginger. Peeling ginger is pointless. It actually, there's a lot of flavor in the peel of ginger, a lot of nutrients, so you want to eat unpeeled ginger. So I'm just going to now toss all of this together. And I'm going to add some water to this once I'm sure that this is, like I said, whisk tender. I'm going to make sure that my lentils are completely smooth. I don't want them to be chunky. The idea of this soup is that the soup is kind of creamy without any cream. And now we have our like a basic dal ready to turn into a soup now.
It smells beautiful.
I know, doesn't it look good too?
This looks really good.
So next thing that goes in here is just water to kind of lighten it up and turn it into a soupy dal. So here we go. I'm gonna add roughly 3 or 4 cups because the dal was boiled with water. So I want it to be really the recipes here don't matter as much because I want the consistency to be soupy. I don't want it to be thick.
Right.
It's not so heavy, and it has a great creamy consistency. So now that the soup is simmering and we've added the water, it's gonna come to a slow boil. I'm not gonna rush this. And while this is happening, we are going to cut the butternut squash into small chunks.
So what size do you recommend?
So I like the small ones, but I mean, obviously this one is fine too. And usually when I do these, I actually will add all the stuff that goes on the inside, like the stuff that usually
the seeds.
Yeah, you can actually add the seeds, and seeds have a lot of nutrition. At the restaurant we add it actually. So
great. I mean, the way that you focus on not wasting anything is really awesome.
something we all need to be doing, right? So I'm
Probably
gonna
adds more flavor too.
It does, totally does. I'm gonna make big chunks of the squash, so they're big enough to fit onto a spoon. You shouldn't need a fork to eat them. But if the squash is small, no problem. I think people get intimidated by butternut squash because they think it's hard to peel, but you just need a peeler.
Yeah.
And you peel it super simple.
Well, yeah, and if you're including all of the insides and everything like that, then it makes it really simple.
Yeah, you don't have to trim it. Just have to peel it and then chop it up in any way you want.
And you can substitute any squash.
Yes, you could put carrots.
Oh, okay.
You could put sweet potato. You could put zucchini squash, which wouldn't be as tasty as this, I think. What I like about this is that the lentils have a savory flavor, and the butternut adds that sweet balance to it. So.
And it's still starchy. A little starchy.
Yes, exactly. Checking up on the soup now, which has been. Just still needs to come to a boil. I'm just gonna add the butternut squash to it in just another minute.
Okay.
I just want it to come to one good boil before I do that. Whisk it one more time.
And can you substitute other lentils besides this one?
Yes, you could. You could do any flat lentil that actually purees well. So you could do like a moong dal. There's another lentil called the masoor dal. Moong is a yellow lentil, masoor is an orange lentil. I could do either one.
Okay.
I wouldn't do the heavier lentils. Then it becomes like a bean stew.
Right.
That's a whole other thing. Then you leave them whole and you cook them forever. So
yeah.
This just cooks much faster than most.
It just looks really light.
Yes, the soup is light enough that you could have it as a first course, or you could have it as a main course with some bread or rice.
Okay, great.
And now I'm going to take the squash and add it to the soup. Really just very simply just adding it directly. Now one way to up level this is to roast the squash in the oven and then add it, but it's just more work.
Yeah.
And to me it's delicious like this, so we don't need to do that. I'm always telling people that there is a way to make your food even tastier.
Right.
So here we go. Here's all the squash in here. And this will just boil. It'll be cooked through in like 10 minutes.
Okay.
And then I'm going to turn the heat down on this as soon as it boils and let it simmer. If I put the top on too soon, lentils tend to just come up and make a mess in your stove. So
right.
I want to leave them, I want to wash them while they're boiling.
After it's done, then that's when you maybe bring in the kale, or?
Yes, the kale goes at the end actually. The next thing I'm going to do is take the ghee and then heat it up and do the pop, which is the most interesting thing we're going to be doing today is the pop.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah, this is the ghee that we're going to pop. You can pop using olive oil, mustard oil, sesame oil, any oil that you want really. I just love a good ghee pop. The smell is amazing, or the aroma.
Yeah.
So we're going to pop these cardamom seeds, these just green cardamom pods, and they just kind of open up in the oil and then they'll go into the dal and add a great aroma. Cumin seeds, which is another seed that has a lot of flavor, and when you fry it in oil, it just, the flavor profile goes up tremendously. And then we will add these amazing curry leaves, which is a very traditional leaf in Indian cooking. It's got the essence of pine and lemon. We'll add these to the ghee too, and then in the end we will add the chili powder to kind of give the ghee a bit of color and to cook the chili just a little bit.
Okay.
But the key then is to do it just at the right time so your oil is not too hot. If it's too hot, the chili is going to burn. If it's too cold, it's not going to really color the ghee, and then we'll add all of that to the dal.
Oh, okay, great.
And then after that we'll add the kale and the lemon. So the kale and the lemon go in at the end.
Okay. So you're not really cooking the kale in this.
No, I think the kale just needs to wilt. I don't think it needs to cook.
So if I wanted to make this like a winter dal or a like summer or spring.
It just depends on what vegetables you put. You could put okra.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you could just put it, but the key with okra is to put it in the last minute and not to overcook it so it gets slimy.
Slimy, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Then you could put a summer squash.
Yeah.
There's a lot of the patty pan squashes, the yellow squash. Or you could put green peas.
Oh.
You could put asparagus.
Okay.
You could put sugar snap peas.
Oh.
So I've done dal with a million different versions, and I just love this because to me, you know, I'm trying to eat mostly plant-based, and this food gives me the satisfaction that meat gives me.
Yeah, for sure.
And not a lot of foods do that, you know, so this just makes me feel so nourished. So now that this is at a nice little simmer, you can see the lentils are simmering, the squash is cooking. I'm gonna go ahead and put the top on.
What a beautiful pot.
I know, isn't it? So I think pots are one of the biggest investments anybody that wants to cook should make. I have an obsession with them. So I have all the good ones, or almost all the good ones, and love La Creuset. I love the weight of the pot. So when you cook beans or any kind of stew, if you use something with thin bottom, it ends up burning, scorching, and then the flavors are just not the same. So a good pot does really end up with good cooking and good food. So it's a worthwhile investment. So here we're just gonna let these simmer for about 10 minutes, or 5 to 10 minutes, and then we'll just do the pop.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna move this to the back stove now. So it's gonna be on a very low simmer. I'm gonna turn this off and put this on low, and then have it just boil for about another 10-12 minutes till it's just about till the squash is tender, which doesn't take very long. It takes less than 10 minutes really if the soup is boiling.
So Chef, tell me a little bit about this pot you keep talking about.
Yeah, so it's actually called, in Hindi, it's called vaghar or tarka. There are many words for it, and we Indians just do it so subconsciously that no one's ever written about it, and I hope to write about this in a big way someday.
Yeah.
But essentially it's a way to take any kind of fat, whether it's oil, ghee, and add spices to it, but mostly seed spices like cumin, mustard seeds, fenugreek seeds, fennel seeds, and then add them to the oil where they just start to sizzle, and all that does is it just opens up the flavor of these seeds like times 10. And then you add that to whatever you're cooking. It could be to rice, it could be to a stew, it could be to a dal, but most dals end with a pop, or we call it a tarka. Most good dals end with a pop. So what we're going to do, we're going to end the dal with a pop.
So it makes it better than just throwing the spices.
Yes, completely different. So if you just throw the cumin seeds, the cardamom seeds in the dal, well, you'll taste them, but they'll kind of be flat. And with this, they will you will taste that cumin. You know, in India they call, or some Indian chefs call cumin the bacon of Indian cooking. So because cumin has a little bite, you know, that has that umami flavor, and you get that bite with a popped cumin much more than with just plain cumin. So shall we turn this on?
Yeah.
And get this going? Okay. So here we are, and I'm just going to put the ghee into this. It's just about 3 or 4 tablespoons of ghee. Going to let this kind of melt.
Is there anything we need to keep in mind in regards to ghee? Like, is there?
Yeah, so ghee is, you know, it's what's different about ghee and clarified butter? People think of them as the same thing, but they're not.
Right.
So ghee is clarified butter that has gone a little further. It's actually clarified butter that is nuttier in flavor, because we not just take this milk solids out, we actually caramelize them. So when you heat up unsalted butter to make ghee or to make clarified butter, you would just take the solids off there and strain them out, but we actually cook them down to a caramel and then strain the golden liquid, which is the ghee, which is what this is.
Right.
So it just has, and it keeps forever. In Ayurvedic cooking is supposed to be like a really sattvic, which means that it's good for your body, for spiritual evolution. You can actually have the ghee, and it's the one thing that they really recommend in Ayurveda and Indian cooking. So yeah. So one way to do this is to test it out. So we can just throw in a seed and see, is it sizzling and bubbling? Not yet. So I'm just gonna wait. It needs to be a little hotter before I put this. So I'm gonna first put the cardamom and the cumin, and then the curry leaves. The curry leaves, I want them to fry, but not burn, because if I put them for too long, they'll go and turn to this like dark
They
green
become bitter.
brown. Yeah, but they become bitter, and they're not very sightly.
Right.
So I want to see a bright green in my soup. So, okay, let's try it again. Yeah.
They're dancing around.
Yeah, can you see that? And you know, for how simple this step is, it's a lot of people have trouble doing it because they just take too long, and what they don't realize is it's super short. Like the whole process is like under 10 seconds to do. Okay, so I'm gonna add the cumin seeds now.
Okay.
So here we go.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
Okay.
can you hear that?
Yeah.
That's a pop. And can you hear that? I just put the
Oh my gosh.
cardamom in there. Can you smell
That
that?
smells wonderful.
Yes. And now I'm just gonna stand back with this real cover a little. And I'm gonna now turn this thing off
Okay.
because I don't want to burn the chili. I've turned this off now. The cumin is perfect. It's got a nice golden, like a nice brown. The cardamom has popped. I'm going to now add the chili powder to this because I don't want the oil to be too hot, the ghee to be too hot. So I just added the chili powder, and can you see how it's kind of colored the oil, the ghee a little?
It's beautiful. Red
Yeah.
hue.
So this is just gonna sit in here till the dal is completed. We will add this to the dal. So I'm just checking on the squash now. Usually when it comes to the top, it's done.
Okay.
But I'm also going to just cut into it a little to make sure that it's tender and fork tender and soft.
Okay.
And
Just
I'm gonna-
smells the aroma is just so beautiful.
thank you. I'm gonna now add this popped ghee to the soup. Can you see that?
Oh my
And
gosh.
then I'm going to actually take some soup in here
So we have the
and
pan.
swirl this around. Now I don't have to wash this pan.
Oh, that's a pro tip right there.
Yeah, I know, right? And I'm actually, if this pan is like super hot,
Yeah.
then it just sears right off of it.
Oh wow.
And here is the soup. So now we just have to add the kale and the pomegranate seeds and the lemon juice. That's it.
Oh my gosh, it just smells beautiful. I can't wait to eat that.
Actually turn this off now because we don't want to cook it so the squash, you don't want the squash to turn into mush.
Mush, yeah.
So just cook it so it's nice, it holds its shape,
It's tender.
but it's tender, yes.
Yeah.
And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to chop up the kale.
Okay.
And you could use any other green. You could use spinach, watercress, mustard greens, collard greens. So there is no, and I don't want big pieces of kale because I want to eat this with a spoon. I don't want to have to fish in there with a fork to get the kale out.
Sure.
So I want them to be tiny pieces. So I'm just going to really chop up the kale tiny, not like an herb, but just into small bits, and then add that back to the soup.
And you just want to like basically warm them up. You don't necessarily.
Yeah, I just really want to wilt them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and kale is a really hardy green, so even if it cooks a little, it'll still hold its flavor and shape, which is why I ended up picking kale for this. And then we will just cut into this beautiful lemon and add the lemon. So now it's time to bring the soup up here. So I'm gonna add the kale to this soup now and just stir it in. And gonna turn the heat off. That's it. We will add the lemon when we actually serve it.
Okay.
So that's it. The soup will just continue boiling on its own. It'll simmer and the kale will wilt and cook to a nice softness. We eat that with a spoon.
Is it ready?
Yes.
All right.
It's time to enjoy this soup now. Look at that.
Beautiful. So, Chef, how would you serve this dish typically?
So many different ways. You could have it as a soup like we are now, with a piece of toasted bread, or you could have it a little bit thicker with rice or with a quinoa pilaf. I personally love quinoa with dal.
Yeah.
So there are just so
sure.
many ways to have this.
Absolutely.
Or just on its own with nothing.
Right.
Now I'm going to add some lemon juice to this.
So how much lemon juice would
Just a
you
little bit, not too much. I don't want to make it too acidic, but it
Sure.
needs a little bit of acid.
a little brightness?
Yeah, just a little bit of brightness.
Okay.
And then some pomegranate seeds because they're in season.
Yeah.
And they add magic to all food.
Absolutely. And a
Right.
little pop of color.
And then a little bit of herb, which you can add anything. Cilantro, I just have basil.
Okay.
Super fresh basil from the market. But you could add basil, you could add cilantro, oregano, mint, you name it.
Okay, great.
They're all delicious.
Oh, wow.
That's it.
Beautiful.
Here you go.
Thank you so much, Chef. Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. Wow.
Yeah, so it's interesting. You taste the things like cumin, and then there's the aromatics that are gonna hit you. The basil, the cardamom is the aromatic, and the curry leaves. Those are the ones that you smell first.
Right.
You taste the cumin, you'll taste the ginger in a minute.
I also taste the chili powder.
Yeah,
Has
there
like a
should be
little bit
some
of a bite
heat.
to it, yeah.
Yeah, that's the idea. And the pomegranate adds a nice crunch when when you bite into it every other bite.
It's a very balanced meal. I mean, it just feels everything, it touches on every aspect of this dish. It's
Thank
wonderful.
you. And so humble, so simple, and you can make so many versions of this. That's the best part.
Well, Chef, thank you so much for bringing us in your home. This is truly a wonderful meal, and I look forward to sharing many more with you.
Me too. I'm excited to have you here, and I'm happy to have shown you something that is so, like such a home dish. I cook this at home much more than I would at the restaurant.
Well, I
So,
can't wait to cook this at home too.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Chef, before we go, can you share a little bit about the sweet treats you have for us today?
Yeah, so I have this space above the Pondicheri restaurant called the Bake Lab, where we do all kinds of experimenting with India-inspired food, and it's like from cookies to brownies to treats and savory goods and masalas, and some of these sweets are what we just all love to eat, so we brought some for you to try. So here we have the cardamom cookie. It's called a naan-katai, but we call it the indica cookie. I used to serve that at my first restaurant, Indica, at the end of every meal. This is the masala cookie, another shortbread with turmeric, cumin, coriander, the miracle cookie, which has moringa, which they call the miracle plant in India,
Right.
and mint, and then the lemon bar, and then ginger cloud, and then our rani.
Okay, great. And so people can order these online and have it shipped anywhere in the U.S.
Pondicheri.com. Yes,
Oh
ma'am.
my gosh, wonderful. Well,
For the holidays.
well, thank you so much for having us today. It was such a wonderful time to spend with you in your home. And thank you to Ajna for making that Golden Mule cocktail. I'm definitely going to be making that at home. And thank you for tuning in. And to our partners, Tito's and Assembly Kitchen, for helping make this show possible. And we'll see you at the next Alliance Academy. Thank you.